Short questions, short answers by Torah teacher Ariel in the Bible. Copyright TaNaKH Torah Ministries 2015. All rights reserved. Here's the question we're going to be addressing tonight. Question: why was Paul asked to join 4 Jewish men in completing a vow in Acts 21:23? Quote, when the 7 days were almost completed, the Jews from Asia, seeing him in the temple, stirred up the whole crowd and laid hands on him. End quote. That's Acts 21:27. So we see right away he didn't even get to finish the vow. And perhaps that indicates that it was null and void. Notice the phrase, when the 7 days were almost finished. Some would argue that this proves that his vow was voided and that he wasn't able to keep it anyway. What we know for sure is that he did purify himself on the first day because Acts 21:26 says so, indicating his obedience to Torah commands. He just didn't get to complete all the 7-day rites in accordance with Numbers 6, 9 through 12. So in my opinion, he was able to do what the leaders there instructed him to do. He was able to participate in the vow to the extent that he could. As we read this passage at first, it looks as if we have 2 seemingly contradictory convictions or concepts occurring in the text. And I say seemingly because in point of fact, the Bible cannot contradict itself. So allow me to articulate what I believe the unspoken contradictions are, and then allow me to attempt to harmonize the 2 together. So that's what we're going to do tonight. As one reads through the Bible with eyes opened by faith, one comes to the following conclusion affirmed by conviction A, the first one, that Jesus came to bring the sacrifices to their fullness by his once and for all sacrifice on the cross, and in doing so accomplished our eternal redemption. Romans 3:24, 1 Peter 2:24, Ephesians 1:7, and 1 Peter 1:3-5. That's conviction A, right? That's what most of us have as believers. It's our conviction about the reality of Jesus' atonement and things like that. As one reads through the TaNaKH, the Old Testament, one must come to the conclusion implied by concept B, for many it's not a conviction yet, that as long as the temple stood, atonement existed on 2 levels, temporal and eternal. Temporal atonement for the worshipers as well as for the Holy Sanctum was procured by offering the mortal blood of animals on the altar at the sanctuary. So we've got our internal reality of Jesus' atonement along with this concept that there's this temporal atonement as well. Now, this temporal atonement only provided sanctification for the purification of the flesh. And Leviticus 16:16, corroborated with Hebrews 9:13 and 14, actually demonstrates this temporal atonement explicitly. So we know it's not something that we may have to make up on our own. It's something that we can read about in the Bible. All right, what are our conclusions to tonight's short study? If Paul is bringing a sacrifice after Yeshua has already accomplished his finished work on the cross, right, conviction A, yet while the temple was still standing in Paul's day, then the only conclusion that harmonizes conviction A with concept B is that Paul's animal sacrifices were for temporal atonement only. See how he can put those 2 together? He still affirmed in his heart and spirit that Yeshua's blood afforded him eternal atonement. I don't have a problem with Paul's sacrifices because I don't believe Paul felt his sacrifices competed with Yeshua's sacrifice on the cross. Indeed, as the Hebrews 9:13 and 14 passage shows us, they work in tandem as long as there was a standing, functioning temple. So we should not have a competition. Of course, temporal atonement is a moot point today since, well, there's no temple, right? We can't bring them because there's nowhere to bring them. There's no priest, there are no animals, etc., etc. Lastly, if my stated conclusion is invalid, and there are other possibilities that I did not cover in this short space, then one is left with Paul either compromising on his convictions about Yeshua, which is a position we know can't be tenable, or we have Paul acquiescing out of fear of those Jews who were all, quote, zealous for the law, end quote, like we read about in 21 verse 20 and 21, right? It's either one of those positions. Either Paul was duplicitous, two-faced, or he was just weak, which I don't think either position is tenable. And like I say here, I don't feel an acquiescing position suits a Paul who demonstrated time and time again in the book of Acts that he was not afraid of opposition. In the context of the situation we are currently focusing on, Paul would not simply become a Jew just to win the favor of those pro-Torah Jews, especially since they were already believers, right? Paul's a believer, they're believers. Why would he simply just become a Jew to be Jews to them? To wit, 1 Corinthians 9:20, where Paul talks about becoming all things to all men. I don't think it can be Paul's way of approving situation ethics, else this would also excuse doing wrong in order to get a chance to do right, which we know is not the right thing to do. Check out my podcasts, which are available on iTunes. You can search for me in the store under the search term Ariel Hanavi. But if you prefer to watch your theology, check out my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click the bell for notifications. New content is added weekly or even daily.